Hi everybody! Welcome back to Yukikaze Gaming. Good to have you back with us. We're going to pick up our playthrough of Parkasaurus. It has been a couple of weeks since last time I played it, so it'll be a little bit interesting. I'm probably a little bit rusty since last time, but we'll see. I think I remember most of the key stuff. We'll give this a shot, and now, with more voiceover. Last time we were playing, we didn't have any of this set up yet. I was using a totally different recording method, but I think I've got the new method hammered out. I know I say that every time, but, you know, there's definitely still going to be some minor tweaks as we go. But I think I've got most of the important things really pretty functional now. So I guess the first question that we have to answer is, which level are we going to do this time? We do have a couple of options here. I've actually unlocked all of the possible levels, it looks like. And I remember that some of them unlocked later than others, which kind of implies that they're probably more difficult. Want to probably try and stick to some of the easier ones first, even though, as it turns out, you know, they called the first stage the tutorial, but that really wasn't the case, right? Like, it probably would have been better if they called that something like basics, or first steps or something like that, because when you actually get in here and start playing through some of these, it turns out that the entire campaign is really just kind of the tutorial for the sandbox mode from the looks of it. So we will kind of keep progressing here and learn, you know, what we need to learn about the game. Even though I played pretty far into the tutorial before and kind of learned a lot of the things that they're only just now starting to teach us, it is nice to still play through the campaign, because it is you know, a mild challenge sometimes too, and it's fun to play through the different scenarios that they've come up with. And just because it gives kind of a benchmark for completion, and I kind of really want, since this was the first sort of real game that we played on the channel, to play it all the way through the campaign mode at least, and actually get to, um, you know, show off the rest of what the game has to offer. Little bit of my background again. I, you know, do like these kind of games. Usually with these sort of theme park sims, though, I don't get particularly far, um, because usually you get kind of bogged down with a lot of them in the minutia of managing things like employee wages, and when that happens, a lot of times I kind of lose my motivation to play because, you know, the budget that you're working with in terms of the income that you get and everything is on such a razor-thin margin that, you know, it's meant to be a challenge, but that I'm not really necessarily looking for a challenge in these kinds of management sims, which is part of why I like this one a little bit more because it's more laid back. Um, but I did play all the way through Jurassic World Evolution some time back, and they're very similar games at their core. Um, Jurassic World Evolution, for those who haven't played it, is definitely kind of more of the like triple A version of this, where there's a little bit more of a challenge to it as well. And for sure, there's a lot of issues that you go through where dinosaurs really break out very frequently, and you're kind of constantly having to deal with that. And the missions in the game make that even more difficult because they, you know, like to slap those kinds of challenges on you. So let's go ahead and start a new game, Machu Picchu. We're going to build a dinosaur sanctuary at Machu Picchu to honor our friends and learn about dino tears. Let's give it a shot. Quest! Machu Picchu! Dinos have a tier based on the gem required to make the egg. The ancient people of Machu Picchu were great allies to us dinosaurs and helped us find gems. That seems a little bit suspect, but, these are space dinosaurs that we're dealing with here, so I guess they're going with some kind of ancient alien theory thing. We summon the overlords from History Channel. Um, Build a dinosaur sanctuary at Machu Picchu to honor our friends and learn about dino tears. Alright, so we get a Seismosaurus egg. I don't think we've seen one of those before. Ankylosaurus egg, Triceratops egg, Parasaurolophus, Parasaurolophus egg, Stegosaurus egg, and then I probably am also starting with a couple of extra eggs because of some of the perks that I picked up out in the management screen. So to start with, let's pause real quick and take a look in the backpack. Oh wow, yeah, I've got 2 or 3 of some of these eggs. And an Animantarx. Animantarx. I've never heard of that one before. Albertosaurus. Velociraptor. Those are always fun. I don't think that we've actually had one of those yet in this playthrough either. Interesting that the exhibit size is smaller than some of the other ones. Stegosaurus, Triceratops, Ankylosaurus, Seismosaurus, which was the first one that we looked at, I think. Man, those need a really big exhibit, don't they? So we'll probably end up doing something with them last, just because they need so much space and it can be costly to make exhibits of that size. Let's look at the tiers here too. If I look it over, except for the Animantarx, and the Albertosaurus, the rest of them are all tier 1 dinos. And what I've realized from the previous playthroughs is that the higher tier dinosaurs are the ones that really destroy the fences more easily, it seems like. It seems to have less to do with how big the dino is in this game, and a lot more to do with their tier. So higher tier dinos need higher tier fencing. Which means that even though we're starting with their egg, we probably shouldn't use it for a while, because it will kind of just bust right out, and then we'll have issues as it kind of wreaks havoc on the park, and we can't really keep it contained. So, let's get a little lay of the land here and take a look around our park. It's probably not really necessary to look at the actual parking lot, but for some reason I like to do that anyway, just because it helps give me a better idea of where the boundaries are and everything. We're going to look over... Okay, so we've got this area up front that's this kind of hilly area, and they were saying this is, Machu Picchu, so presumably this is supposed to resemble the pyramid area, even though, a lot of it's kind of partially run down from age. I haven't been to Machu Picchu, so I can't really say how accurate it is, but let's see if I can remember. Okay, yeah, that's how we rotate the camera. It has been a little while, so a few little controls like that I'm going to need a little bit of time to remember how to implement. But we also have all this really flat area back here, and it would be really nice to take advantage of that. In fact, I think it's almost easier to just build pathways that come out of the starting area and come out to this really wide open space than it is to leverage some of the spacing up here. But since we already have the pathway and some benches, And just because it will look a little nicer that way, and this game doesn't really punish you for doing that kind of thing too harshly, we may go ahead and use some of these spaces up here to start with, and just kind of see how it goes. I feel like, if the multi-levels, we've probably got some areas like this over here that would be better for things like shops. Um, and then we've got some of these larger platforms that look like they'll be better for housing some dinosaur um, exhibits. And we've got multiple entrances that can be used up onto these platforms to give multiple paths of entrance. I don't know how relevant that is, but we'll find out, I guess. And then we've got a couple areas that are like this over here, where it's just kind of a little outcropping. I'm not sure what can really be done with that, other than maybe using it just for, like, outhouses and things like that. But, Okay, so we've got a quest as well. Hatch 2 dinos of Tier 1. The tier of the dino is determined by the gem required to make the egg. Higher tier dinos result in higher fun for the guests and larger donations. So that kind of goes without saying. We already kind of figured that out in previous episodes. But at the same time, as I explained earlier, they are also harder to contain, and they're more expensive to make their eggs. Which means that you kind of do need to start with the lower dinos first and work your way up. Otherwise, you can have some trouble. It's not 100% necessary. There are some ways around it, especially if the map does give you some stronger starting fencing. And it's also possible to kind of cheat by using the concrete fences that have the medium durability. And it looks like this time around they gave us chain link fences off the start as well. I don't think you usually start with that, so let me check our science. That's interesting. Yeah, okay. So it started us with a couple of science items. We do have the Stay Out Late pack, the Shade pack, Uncommon Gems, Master Chef, which this is one of the ones that I really like to unlock, as well as the Sugar King, because they give you the increased food options, and that really helps with getting a lot more money out of the guests, and sometimes with bonus effects out of the food as well. I think I can go ahead and close that for the time being. It does have the quest up here in the right side as well, so I don't really need to keep that around as long as I know that I need to be doing it. We also have the Horticulturist Amateur already unlocked, but I'm not totally sure where we're getting the chain link fencing from. I kind of thought that came from a different set of packs in here. Look around a little more. So I don't think it jumped us ahead into anything down the road or anything like that. So what am I... Where did that go? Maybe there was an update to the game, and those just aren't even part of the science tree anymore or something? I could have sworn those were part of one of these science trees, and that you had to unlock it. And also that there were higher tiers to unlock. I almost feel like I'm not seeing the entire science tree. Oh, I think I know what's going on. That's right, it's not part of the science tree. It's part of the hearts tree. Um, and yeah, we did start with some of that unlocked as well. So the mall guard security, and the Acme security, uh, which gives us the, oh no, it's an upgrade to the balloon shop. That's right. Um, that gives us the chain link fence and the metal door and the white fence, which I don't really know that there's much point to other than I think it costs the same amount as the other basic fence, and it might look slightly nicer. Oh no, actually, I think it costs more. So I'm not sure what the benefit is other than aesthetics. Um, as far as I know, it doesn't have any direct gameplay impact other than it costing more. And the Cone of Shame gets unlocked, but we probably won't be using that. Um, I I guess the Cone of Shame, like the real reason that you would want to get that is the change biome to alpine effect. I mean, the 20 appeal doesn't hurt, but that effect theoretically could allow you to, if I'm understanding it right, to equip it on a dino and then have them change what biome they need to alpine from whatever their original was, which could have benefits to allowing you to more easily cluster them with other types of friendly dinosaurs, um, and keep the entire exhibit uh, biome, or the same alpine biome, rather than having to, for instance, let's say you only have one dino that is like desert biome, and all of your exhibits are alpine, and you have one that's already big enough to house the dinosaur, and it will get along with the other dinos in it. Changing that to alpine could be useful. Um, I I think that's what that's for. Uh, And we're also starting out with 35 hearts and 1400 science. So we also have the ability that we could buy some additional upgrades if we wanted to, but I kind of feel like I should get a better idea first of exactly how I'm going to play out here before I start investing those, because I don't want to burn all of them on things that it turns out that I don't need, and then get kind of stuck because I don't have the resources available to progress. So I'm going to just kind of back out of this for now. Oh, I kind of forgot that it lowers the volume when you're in the menu screen like that. That's interesting. I should start a portal at some point, but not until I've hired on some staff. So we're not going to get very far without hiring on a basic set of staff. We should go ahead and do that to start with. At the start of the game, I don't really need high personality. That's more for curing sick dinosaurs. So I'm really looking for someone that has a good combination of speed and ability. Um, Not like this person. Um, I guess tool use is probably important later on, but I haven't actually found a scenario where I needed it yet, which leads me to believe that I probably don't want to be trying to hire anybody that has a high tool use value, which takes away from their stats in other areas, until I've reached a later point in the game where I'm actually needing to do the more advanced portal digs, because that seems to be, what that is for. Well, it does say it's how efficiently they do a task, um, but I think speed is more important than tool use, for most things except for the digging, from what I can tell. I could be wrong about that, because it doesn't feel like they've given me very solid information about it, but I think until I learn better, I'm just going to stick with what I know and understand, because it's been working for me pretty well. So We have 2 speed for ability, and what I'm looking for is kind of the multiplier between the two. Um, I would give that a total value of 8. Um, and then I also look at the uh, sum value of the two. So I would give them a score of 8 and a score of 6. Whereas this person would get a score of 4 and 5, which by my scoring method is clearly worse. And this person would get a score of 1 and 2. Definitely not desirable. Lampada. So this person would get a 6 and a 5, and a 2 and a 3. So I think our best choice is this person. They are a little more expensive, but I don't think... Well, it is a cost per day. But it's such a marginal amount that the extra ability is probably worth it. Again, I think. I'm not really sure. But, if we look at some of the other characters, for instance, much cheaper to hire, but much lower score. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and go with this person, and then we'll go take a look at some of our other options here. We've got somebody who looks like he might be Rasputin secretly. This is not who I'm after because they do have very low scores again. I'm not particularly looking at the stage for personality in a janitor. I don't think that it really comes into play very much. So we've got 2 options. Better total stats on Marco. However, they are higher level to start with, and their stats are really kind of only better by like 1 point. You can see that the distribution, essentially, they're the same as Sync 6, I guess their name is, except they've leveled up and effectively put the 3 points that they get from leveling up into personality, tool use, and dig. And those aren't really things that I'm after right now, especially in a janitor, so I'd rather start with the level 1 and level them up and then be able to distribute those points. Okay. So now with scientists, they're a little bit different, and I'm kind of looking ultimately to hire 2 different kinds of scientists. I want the one who works at my kind of research center thing, who has good speed and ability, and then there's also going to be the one who mans the presentation, and they're going to want speed and personality, because the presentation is based off of personality. So at the moment, though, I'm looking to hire for the main researcher, so the personality is not as important for that again. Well, their scores are pretty good all around, but they are level 2, and that's part of the reason. This person's also level 2, though, and they're straight 3s. If I were hiring for the other job, I would hire Ara, but because I'm hiring for this one, I'm going to go ahead and get Como. And we need a security guard. Is a very fast security guard. Again, I don't know how much they actually need the personality stat. I again haven't seen it actually have any clear signs of affecting gameplay as of yet. It kind of seems like certain stats are really only used by certain individuals in certain situations. for instance, the veterinarians, they did call out that the personality trait is important for when they're administering medicine to the dinosaurs. So if that's their role, then you want them to have a higher personality score to do that more effectively. Um, but with security guards, I haven't seen any call out for the personality stat being useful for them. See what our other options are here. I might just go with Babyloni, because they don't need very high stats to start with, but I would rather that they start with more ability, and then I can distribute their points when they level up, unlike the others. They're also a bit on the cheap side compared to the others. Well, I guess they're all pretty inexpensive. Apparently security guards don't get paid very well. So we'll go ahead and hire them, and I think that's all we need to do in this screen for the moment. Okay, so I'm gonna have to make sure that I remember to come in, oh yeah, I should probably do, some initial, well, I need to decide which dino I'm making an enclosure for first, because the first one that I make may actually end up being something like the Velociraptor, which needs a smaller space. And if that's the case, then I don't want to be buying veggies, I want to be buying meat for the Velociraptor. So I should figure that out first, and maybe that is what I'll do, because I do start with 2 of them, and their exhibit size requirement is very small compared to the others. Maybe what I'll try to do is see how big this top level platform is after I've fenced it off, and get a feel for if I can... Yeah, okay. Yeah, the wood fences are only $3. But the white fences are 15, and they both have low strength and privacy. It isn't clear that there's actually any benefit to using the white fence. Again, aside from just style and aesthetics. Which, you know, can be a lot of this game as well. Depending on your playstyle and how you're playing and, you know, how you like to enjoy the game. I don't think I actually need chain link fence for them because they are level 1 dinosaurs. I think I can actually get away with the wooden fences, even though doing that makes me feel, a little uncomfortable. You know, something just doesn't feel right about putting one of the most dangerous dinosaurs ever to walk the face of the earth in simple wooden fence enclosures that one might use for something like a cow. You know, it just, because we know so much about them from the movies and stuff, we, as players, probably understand that in reality the Velociraptors could just jump right over this fence and it wouldn't hold them in at all. But as far as the game mechanics are concerned, there's some ludonarrative dissonance there, and, the fence will almost definitely hold them, even though it kind of doesn't feel like it should. So we'll go ahead and place that. Oh, okay, well I guess it wants me to go this way first. Now this is where I have an important decision to make, because I can either leave a little bit of room for things like pathway, which I think, if I remember right, by default is 3 tiles wide. I guess I could lay some down to start with, just to kind of reserve the space. If I can remember how. Oh, here it is under paths. Okay. And the paths seem to be purely cosmetic. There doesn't seem to be any real reason to choose one over the other, which is kind of nice. It's just sort of style points. Here we go. We can have a nice path, and then it can kind of come down here too, I guess. And if we rotate this, okay. And maybe we want this to come out like that, and then just connect straight over here at a right angle. And then some of these little spaces along the side I can maybe use for benches and decorations and things like that down the road. Right now, maybe not so important to be utilizing that space just yet. So let's get back to our fence building now that we actually have some pathway in place for people to be able to come and view the dinosaur. It does turn out that it's not actually important for the dinosaur exhibit to be viewable from absolutely every space. In fact, there are some disadvantages to that because dinosaur privacy is a thing. And it's kind of cool that they implemented that, because otherwise you're really just sort of incentivized to make every possible viewing angle available, and that's not always the best from a gameplay perspective, much less a design perspective. Design in terms of your design of the park that you're building and enjoying, not necessarily game design. But I guess game design too, to some extent. And we'll just see how big this ends up after I end up making all the fence location. Just really kind of trying to optimize all of the space around the edges here. Okay, so now we've got an exhibit, and it is much larger than I anticipated, actually. 2,068 square feet. That's actually big enough for some of our larger dino needs, at least until we get a couple of different dinosaurs in there. But I wouldn't probably want to use something this big for the velociraptors, because when it comes to them, their space need was only, I think, 350. So even if we had 4 of them in the enclosure, they would still only need 1,400 square feet. So an exhibit of this size is actually overkill for them. We should probably pick something larger. With that in mind, we might actually even want to go with something like the Seismosaurus in this one. I didn't realize just how big this would get. And this seemed like it was going to be one of the smaller enclosures, so some of these other ones I may actually end up splitting up a bit more than I anticipated. It can be a little bit hard to eye exactly how big something is going to be when you're first designing the space. And it might be that even something like the smaller platform down here would be more suitable for the velociraptors. But I'll worry about that a little bit later. I don't like the fact that it has very limited entrances if I do that. And if I were to run pathway, that would really cut into the available space for them. But maybe I can do something like use this kind of weird little area over here for them instead. And I did find that there is an undo feature, which can be pretty handy, especially if you do something on accident, as I often do in these kinds of games. You know, one tiny slip of the mouse and all of a sudden you've made this giant row of fencing all the way across your entire park or something. And that can actually be game-ending for some games if you do that with money that you just didn't have to spare, and, you know, there's just no way that you can recover from it. Fortunately, this one isn't usually like that even without the undo feature, but the undo feature does make it even easier, and it allows us to do things that are a little bit cheesy sometimes. Like I could fence in this area and then run the last line of fence to create the enclosure, and then I could undo that last line if it didn't end up being big enough so that I could further expand it. But for the meantime, let's go ahead and drop our seismosaurs in here. And it's possible, well, maybe I will just keep it one dinosaur exhibit for now. What I was going to say, though, it is possible to put multiple different kinds of dinosaurs in the same exhibit. So that's something I'll consider later. I think because I did go with the seismosaurs, though, they won't leave me enough room to put multiples of any of the other dinos in the same exhibit with them. And you do have to be a little careful, because certain dinosaurs, from what I can tell, will attack each other, and especially if they're not from the same family, or they're not both vegetarians, then it becomes much more likely that they're going to start beating each other up and getting unhappy and attacking defenses and killing your guests. And we don't want that to happen. Safety is always first in our theme park, right? 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 Okay, so we're still missing a door to get into here. It'll be pretty problematic if we don't have at least one of those. But I like to add multiples just to give more options in case one of them gets blocked or something like that. They're not particularly expensive, and it does make me feel a little more comfortable that veterinarians will be able to get there in time to do what they need to do and things like that. We do still have some money left, but I think we better get started on... Oh, we've got the large vegetarian feeder, and that's good because we actually have large-sized dinos. I don't know what that icon means, but it looks like it means that large-sized dinosaurs get some kind of bonus from using this type of feeder, which makes it even more appropriate to use it in this exhibit. And we've got 2 large dinos, so we're gonna give them 2 separate feeders. And obviously those are empty to start with, so now's the part where we have to make sure that we go to town, and we start off by buying some plants for them. I believe the game kind of defaulted to like 6. I don't know if the large dinosaurs eat more or not. I'm honestly kind of confused about that, but we need probably about 6 per dino to start with, and then we also want a daily shipment of that amount to make sure that we don't run out. That may or may not end up being more than we need, but occasionally what ends up happening is I run out of money at the end of the day and don't fill my entire order, so having a little bit of surplus in the daily allowance is actually very helpful for me to help make sure that my dinos don't end up starving to death when I mismanage my money. I don't think that we really need anything else here at the moment. We'll go ahead and go back to the park. And looking around... So... It is pretty far here. We're definitely going to need to set up some more benches and things like that. And I probably want to take care of some of those sort of items before I get into setting up additional areas and stuff like that, because I really don't want to find myself running out of money before I've set up things like basic services. Now I do want to go ahead and make sure that I set up a science building, because if I don't remember to do that, it will cause me some problems a little later on, in terms of science income, so to speak. This is kind of a perfectly sized location for this, so I'll just drop it right here. Even though it doesn't really need to be on the beating path at all, it's okay for it to be there too. So, what I did find also is that there's a very handy feature on these with the Find a Scientist button, and if you click this button, you can pick it up, and you don't have to actually manually target them, which was kind of annoying me when I was doing this early on, especially when you're in pause mode at the very start like this, because you get this little cluster of people here, and it can be hard to tell who's who, and it can be hard to pick up the right one even if you can tell, and it's not that it's impossible to overcome, but it can be a little bit frustrating trying to get the unit that you want. So, with that set up, I think I need to get back to making sure that I have enough things like benches, and I can kind of go through and set up a few of those. There's the rotate button. And remember what I was saying about how we can kind of use some of these little extra spaces, and this is what I was talking about. And this is probably not a bad place for one over here. This is sort of like the Bob Ross method of setting up a theme park. You don't really have to do it in any specific way. As long as there's kind of generally stuff, the game's pretty forgiving. So you just don't want people to have to walk like 6,000 miles without a bench. But if you've got one at least every so often, you'll probably be okay. And we'll kind of reserve this little bit of space over here. I'm not quite sure what we'll do with it yet, but we could end up putting a little shop or a restaurant or something like that there. It does give us enough space to do something like that. And of course, we have to make sure that we have donation boxes. If we don't have those, we're not really going to make any money, or especially early on, when we don't really have food stalls and things like that going yet. And this is probably more than I need, but I do like to put several of these near each exhibit, because I have found before that sometimes the customers just kind of wander around without actually donating. And they'll have a lot of money that they're ready to donate, but if there's not one readily available for them, they just won't end up giving it over. And we certainly don't want people just wandering around wanting to donate and not being able to. So what I've learned about things like garbage bins and restrooms is you kind of want them to be as out of the way as you can without them actually being inaccessible or anything like that. Um, so what I'm going to do is lay some path here that leads out to the restrooms, and kind of in this little nook here, use that space to get some trash cans. Nope, this is not quite working out as hoped. It's kind of hard to see in there. Okay, well we made a little paved area, and now we can drop a few things in there. There we go. At least we have a few of those in the park now. We probably need to spread them out more later, but to start with, at least people have a place that they can go, and that's a important start. Okay, I think I do want to go ahead and build an ice cream stand here, but I'm not sure exactly where yet. They're not very expensive, so I can probably afford this without it impacting anything. Maybe like right here, because I have the space for it, and it's not really interfering with anything. Just kind of thinking about what else I want to add in or need to add in. Park lights are probably a good thing to put in. The post types seem to be purely cosmetic. Now the cool thing about these kinds of lights is I can do something like this, where I put in a post up here, and I put in another post all the way down here, and instead of having to drop a light every so often, and it's really cool that they started me with it on this one, if I can get it to affix to the thing properly. There we go. Oh, yeah. So if I do that, I can just pull this whole string of lights over. You've probably seen me do this before in some of the other earlier levels, if you were watching for those. And yeah, something like that. And now we've got light for that entire part of the path, and at a relatively low cost compared to having to drop one of these streetlights every few feet. Or every several squares thereof. So, what we will do then is make another one of these poles, and mostly if we're doing them this way, all we have to do is kind of drop one every time there's going to be a turn or transition, and we can cover a lot of ground very easily that way. Now, this is one case where they're probably not as effective for these kinds of tiny rows, because they do cost 100, and to have the traditional lights probably will end up costing less than that. So for little spaces like this, it feels kind of weird, but it's probably actually technically better to just do a couple of standard lampposts, And then what I can do is keep using the metal posts on the longer stretches like that. And it does help a little bit to zoom in to be able to connect it properly. Otherwise, it can be a little bit tricky to get it to recognize the top of the post instead of a background element on the ground somewhere, and it's always a bummer when you get like a misclick and it doesn't attach where you want it to. Okay, and then we need another one over here that I almost forgot about. Here we go. Yep, like that. And then down here. And we can connect this one over here. And now instead of having to do tons and tons of clicks, I've already got my lighting set up for all of the park that I have in use so far. And it's consistent lighting all the way through, and I don't have to worry that I didn't put things close enough together or something like that. And if I remember right, if we go to the decoration view, yeah, that's kind of one of the disadvantages. Having the actual lampposts does give a beauty, as though you're dropping like flower boxes or something like that, but these don't. So that's where the other ones are a little bit nicer in that regard. But it is what it is. We can always drop some planters or something like that instead, and it'll probably look nicer in our park, even though it... well, I guess it'll actually still probably end up being cheaper too. So, if I drop some of these out in the middle of the path, for instance, and I don't like to put it near the benches usually, because it does make it a little bit crowded, but it would be good because it would give people sitting on the benches a bonus. Or I should say, over time, increased happiness from being near it. So, but what we can do instead is try to target it like this, where we've got an overlap or a near overlap, and that only extends out 2, but that's okay. Well, the hills do make it a little bit tricky on this one, but we'll work with it. Can we do that? Will it let us? Oh, I guess it will. Oh, it tried to terraform it. That's no good. We want to undo that. Oh, that's the rotate. That's the undo. Okay. Here we go. Yeah, we'll put one like here. And then one like here. And maybe we'll skip that one because we've got this one from the pole. Now it is a little bit, I don't know how to put it. It doesn't feel great that we're using the same scenery piece over and over, but at the same time, it is very stressful to have to keep going in and picking a new scenery object every time, and they're only so big and, you know, I guess for the smaller areas, I could try one of the other ones, but the thing is, the boxed wildflowers only cost 5, and if we look at the happiness area that's generated by something like this, that costs the same amount, it ends up being smaller in total because the item is smaller. There are other ones that are the same size that we could use, but Either way, it's still kind of a pain to have to go back and click over and over, so I'm just going to do it this way. Okay, so we've got most of our basic facilities in order. I see that we've got all of our lighting, we've got benches for people to rest at, we've got our science facility, we've got one place that sells treats, we've got our donation boxes, so I think most of our basic bases are covered, but we do probably still want some additional changes. One of our goals is for the dinosaurs to have happy of 50%, so we need to facilitate that before we spend the rest of our money. We need to check that... Okay, these are desert biome. Which means that we need to change everything in here to be sand. And that's probably going to be pretty expensive because this is such a large enclosure. So... even though it only costs $1 per tile, that still, because it's a 2,000 tiles large, ends up costing us 2,000. Now it is nice though that it doesn't charge you for overlap. That's a good quality of life feature. But it does charge you if you're going over onto tiles where you can't actually use it. So you do probably want to be careful of that if you're playing this for yourself. Uh-oh, what's happening there? Okay, so now we've got some nice sand. That is their preferred tile type, and we should make some privacy for them. Just kind of randomly spacing it out in here. They are larger, so I'm trying to make them not only be one tile, otherwise they may be too small for them to actually use the privacy. And we should probably check, because it did say desert biome, we need to make sure that we're setting up correctly for desert. So if we were to make it much more wet, it would become savanna, and if we made it wet and rugged, it would become prairie. So it's already a desert. We don't actually have to go through and add in any water or anything. But we should probably put a little bit of water, because what I find is if we don't do that, then when we go to put in plants and stuff, they can't get any water and you have problems. So we do have some leeway here to work with. It's not like it'll turn into savanna instantly. We can make a few tiny pools here and there, and that will help us out down the road. That's probably plenty. Maybe like one more over in this area, and we should pretty much be good. Maybe a little bit like right there or something, and maybe a tiny bit there. Okay, so now we've got some water, and that should support plenty of, well, not grass, but plants, trees, and whatever other scenery that we need to put in here. Okay, so now we're seeing that we've kind of gone very deep into making this desert, but all of our desert trees are locked, and all of our desert bushes. We do have our desert rocks though, so that's good. I don't know why it says smart water on these, but we'll go ahead and start with the rocks just because we have them. and we're trying to meet the biodiversity requirements if you haven't been watching the rest of the playthroughs. Having the biodiversity requirements met makes the dinosaurs happier, which right now is one of our goals, so we want to make sure that we meet that. Again, just kind of randomly spacing things wherever I think it'll look good. There is some disadvantage to doing that, because you could just kind of cluster them all in one place, and that would technically be better, from the perspective that when you go to add in other features later, you won't have to worry that there's no spaces large enough to add them. But it's not a big deal, because you can also always move these later, and it doesn't cost anything in this game, unlike some other games where it costs you money every time you want to move something. So we still need a few more rocks. Maybe I'll get another rock type in here. Oh, I think... Okay. Yeah, I guess I don't have any shale yet. They are a little bit bigger though, and take up more room, but they still give you the same amount. So I am going to cheese a little bit and use the smaller rocks, and kind of dedicate a couple of them in here, because it is getting a little bit messy and cluttered, and I do want to save some of this space back in this area for some of the items I need to add in later, like the little shelter beds for them to sleep in and things like that. And then if we want to be able to have trees and bushes, we can buy them in here using the hearts. Hopefully that doesn't turn out to be a bad move, but we've already pretty heavily invested, so we would probably have to start over if we didn't do this. We could probably actually get away with not having the biodiversity requirements met, but it might make things a little bit harder to reach those goals now that we've gone down this path. Going to take a sip of water real quick. Don't forget to stay hydrated, everybody. Okay. So now that we've unlocked the ability to add the trees, we do need to actually put some in. Want to make sure that we're not using the wrong type of trees, though. Some coconut trees. Random bit of trivia, but coconut is one of the favorite foods of hermit crabs. I can't say that the small, medium, and large coconuts actually look all that much different. They really are just kind of slightly larger versions of the same plant from the looks of it, but that's okay. It's not like you actually need to have more than one type or anything like that, as far as I can tell. Oh, that one really is growing in a weird shape, isn't it? Alright, so... Oh, I forgot to keep our biodiversity tab open. Okay, we actually already have enough trees. We may even have gone over. Let's take a look at bushes. Well, bunny ears sound cute. But I guess that's a cactus type? I didn't know that. I've seen these kind of cacti around, but I didn't know that they were called that. That's very interesting. Evergreen shrub. Okay. And more cacti! More cacti! This kind of cactus always makes me think of the cactuars from Final Fantasy. We'll finish out with a couple more of these. Just drop a few of them maybe another of the bunny ears. Just because bunny ears sounds cute. Okay, now we've met the biodiversity requirements, but unfortunately we're out of time. That's all for this session of Yukikaze Gaming. Thank you for joining me. Hope to see you again. Feel free to hit the subscribe button, and that way it'll help me out, and you'll get to know immediately every time one of my new videos goes live. Thank you for coming. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye! Mata ne!